the FBI or any of these other agencies aren't going to be very intense when it comes to how people are using Bitcoin, and if they're using it the wrong way. You have a lot of these establishment actors partnering up with groups like Chain Analysis, which I believe was funded by NQTEL, the CIA. They have a very vested interest in that. And then you have former CIA directors like Mitchell Morrill, who now works for Beacon Global Strategies, putting out pieces on Bitcoin and things like that, saying that, it would be preferable if criminals used Bitcoin instead of $100 cash bills and stuff. So, they definitely think they're going to be successfully able to surveil people. And again, they will be if regular Bitcoiners or developers do nothing to prevent that. And I think there's an effort sort of to make people think, oh, look, here we are, we've arrived, we've won, and sort of get people to sit back and relax and do nothing.
In a recent interview with Natalie Rell, Whitney Webb dives deep into Bitcoin's current position, exploring political perspectives on its future, energy centralization concerns, and the resilience of stablecoins compared to CBDCs. Whitney offers valuable insights on these pressing issues, illuminating the complex relationship between cryptocurrency, politics, and financial systems. Her analysis provides a unique view of the challenges and opportunities Bitcoin and other digital currencies face in today's rapidly changing financial landscape. Before we jump into this discussion, remember to like, subscribe, and share this channel. Now let's hear more from Whitney Webb.
I think it's pretty obvious that it's the conservative camp really only, aside from, RFK being an independent, that are interested in really appealing to the Bitcoin base at all as it relates to electoral politics. And they've done so very successfully. But I think, again, what you're seeing here is sort of what we saw over the course of the past year, was sort of Wall Street warming up to Bitcoin. And what we're seeing, it's just another extension of the establishment cozying up to Bitcoin, I guess. So I guess you could frame, Larry Fink's about face and all of that as sort of the private sector establishment turnaround, and this is sort of the public sector establishment turnaround. But as far as it relates to financial freedom, I don't think the policies expressed by, Trump, or at least what Trump expressed or hinted at in his speech, because he didn't, as far as RFKs went, he was more deliberate about what his policies specific. And Trump was a little more vague, but based on what, Trump said, talking about sort of yoking Bitcoin and the dollar together and using that to expand the dollar's power and hegemony globally, and then also bringing in stable coins, which of course would be in this case dollar denominated stable coins, into the play. We have to consider what that means if the reason we're voting for it is to ensure that Bitcoin will be used to propagate financial freedom globally. So, if you're of the opinion that you want Bitcoin to be, hyper Bitcoinization to come at all costs, even if that means it not being a tool for financial freedom anymore, or it being used by intelligence agencies to surveil people, or by Wall Street to, do their thing, then maybe it's fine. But if you're of the idea that, I want Bitcoin to be empowered to end irresponsible fiscal policy at the national level, and want it to ensure financial freedom for everybody, then I don't think Trump's policies necessarily spell that out, unfortunately. And part of that has to do with the whole stablecoin play. So Trump has been very openly against central bank digital currencies, but the problem with stablecoins, particularly the big ones, is that they're just as programmable and surveillable as CBDCs could be. So most people are against CBDCs because of the programmability aspect and and the surveillability aspect, being able to trace and surveil every dollar you spend. And stablecoins can offer that as well, because most of them are built, they're like ERC20 tokens right at the end of the day, and have that programmability functionality. And some stablecoin issuers that are prominent, like Circle, openly talk about the programmability aspects of their stablecoin. And they're in a very deep alliance with BlackRock, Circle particularly, and Tether itself has made an alliance with the FBI and the Secret Service, and other aspects of the U.S. government, to freeze wallets at the behest of the U.S. government, thereby making Tether sort of a soft extension of U.S. foreign and fiscal policy abroad as it relates to sanctions and other things. Some of which the US, of course, in the past has used to facilitate regime change operations and other things, not necessarily stop terrorism, as they are inclined to say.
As we just heard, Whitney Webb shed light on Bitcoin's current position and the political perspectives surrounding its future. Now let's delve further into her thoughts on the centralization of energy production for Bitcoin mining, as well as her insights on stablecoins and their potential resilience compared to CBDCs. Webb highlights the often overlooked issue of energy centralization in Bitcoin mining, discussing its implications for the cryptocurrency's decentralized nature. She also offers a comparative analysis of stablecoins and CBDCs, examining their individual strengths, weaknesses, and potential longevity within the evolving digital currency landscape. Webb's insights challenge conventional views and provide valuable food for thought on the future of digital currencies. Now let's listen to what Whitney Webb has to say on Natalie Brunell's show.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people don't think about the infrastructure play of it, but it's held in very few hands, and there's a very small group of people that run, most of the dominant services we use and the infrastructure we use. I mean, most of the internet itself, I think, is, the essential infrastructure of it is like 13 servers around the world. And it's actually a lot more fragile than people think, and also a lot more centralized than people think. And there's a lot of ways where they could implement unprecedented censorship of people, whether that's, financially or speech-wise, if they wanted to. And so there are a lot of agendas as it relates to being able to use the infrastructure at all going forward. I think we've talked about before sort of the effort to force people to adopt some sort of biometric digital ID in order to access the internet at all by going through the internet service provider. Again, there's only a handful of those. That industry is also pretty centralized. And so, if your ability to, access Bitcoin or run a node or anything is dependent on, power, and you're not off grid or whatever, or it's dependent on an ISP and things like that. Yeah, that's definitely something people should consider. And I think, from Mark's and my reporting, it's really clear that the powers that be that are interested in, financially surveilling us to the greatest extent possible, and basically surveilling us, period, to the greatest extent possible, have been thinking about these things for a very long time. And as it relates to Bitcoin, I mean, they've been thinking about it for well over 10 years, and they've put a lot of money into how they're going to make it work for them. And so we need to, again, direct resources to how we're going to make it work for the people, if we're going to make it work for the people. Yeah, so in the case of any sort of controlled demolition, I don't think they want it to happen until they're ready for it to happen. And so, they're going to wait for certain metrics to be met before it kicks off. So obviously, like I mentioned earlier, with all this stuff around COVID-19, it seems like the economy was in major trouble before COVID. And if COVID hadn't happened when it did, we could have had an economic crisis then, without the excuse to, basically print trillions of dollars as, this is our response to the lockdown and the pandemic. I mean, like I said, it was happening before, and they found a way to make it keep rattling on for a little longer. But they know they can't do that forever, right? Because it's a mathematical inevitability that eventually the debt catches up with us if something different isn't done. And again, a lot of the solutions I think they're going to propose are going to be things that people would not normally accept were it not a time of crisis. And so when you have a crisis and people are really stressed out
and scared,
especially if it has to do with their money or losing their money or losing their purchasing power, I think you'll see people sign on to things that they normally would not sign on to. So again, I think it's very likely that we're going to see dollar stablecoins proliferate. And I think part of this too is that, the Fed has essentially said for a few years now that it makes the most sense to do stable coins. You have former top people in the CIA saying that stable coins make a lot more sense than a CBDC. And they say that because, digital dollar stable coins are already here, and they're already servicing the debt through their, mass purchases of treasuries, right? And so You know, if they were to do a CBDC project or something like that, it would take them several years to develop, and they'd be behind a lot of other countries in the world. Whereas if they make the switch to dollar stablecoins and make that the preferred currency of American consumers, then, you know, they sort of avoid those problems that way and still are able to obtain the surveillability and programmability through these public-private partnerships with the private stablecoin issuers that they would have even if it was a CBDC, right? So I think, you know, to make that switch, they can just be like, well, you know, maybe your dollar in this, maybe these banks failed and you think your money may be gone, but we'll give you the same amount of money that you had in your bank, but in the form of these stable coins or something, and you can redeem them here. I mean, pretty much most Americans, I think, would do that to not, you know, lose all their money instantly, right? And so I think it's likely that we're going to see some sort of situation like that. I mean, remember back to the regional banking crisis with Silicon Valley Bank. It seems very likely that a lot more of that is going to happen. And I think you could actually look at that crisis, which arguably was manufactured and made to happen, and that 2008 was kind of similar in that way. And those were major bank consolidation plays. And I think there's going to be an effort to consolidate the industry, the banking industry, even further in the US with the next crisis. And then those banks are going to be like, well, here you go, tokenized deposits, redeem them this way, or stable coins, or, you know, JP Morgan's JPM coin or something like that, transact with that. Wells Fargo's working on one. You know, a lot of these, you know, the biggest banks in the US have done that, and then they'll be able to keep the two-tier banking system in the US the way it is now, but frame it as something, you know, maybe different than it is. We're just modernizing this, and this is going to prevent these crises from happening again, and maybe we'll roll in Bitcoin so that the dollar stays strong and you don't have to worry about hyperinflation. And, you know, I think people, in considering what kind of crisis it is, you know, may really see that as the right solution. But this is something that, again, they've been, you know, developing for quite a long time. And I think if people were to critically think about what a lot of this means, they would not support it, because ultimately, you know, a lot of the uproar about CBDCs, again, was about programmability and surveillability. And I mean, getting every American onboarded onto something that would essentially offer that, and eliminate cash overnight, maybe, you know, is something that people would, again, acquiesce to during a crisis, but not during a non-crisis.
To watch the full interview, check out the link in the description. Whitney Webb offered a thought-provoking analysis of Bitcoin's current challenges, including energy centralization and political agendas, along with valuable insights into the potential future of stablecoins versus CBDCs. We'd love to hear your take on a few key questions. How might the issue of energy centralization impact Bitcoin's decentralized nature? And what role could stablecoins play in the future of digital finance? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this discussion, please subscribe, like, and share our video for more engaging content on the innovative world of decentralization.